We will get very good at this at some point in time. Anyways, thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I'd like to also thank folks in the audience and people who are watching at home as well. Welcome to Council meeting of Monday, December the 12th. I'd like to start with land acknowledgement. We are meeting on the lands that have been home to Indigenous nations since time immemorial. We acknowledge that we are on the treaty land and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the First Nation, as well as the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the township of Centre Wellington, the Mississaugas could no longer continue their traditional lifestyle and retreat to the villages along the Credit River, eventually settling on the Grand River Valley. The Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth, and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations. Okay. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. We will do presentations. And first, 5.1, presentation by Annie Veilleux and Martin Cooper of ASI regarding land acknowledgement for Centre Wellington. And welcome.
Okay. Mayor Waters, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to present this important project to you tonight, the Wellington County Municipality's Land Acknowledgement Project. My name is Annie Veilleux. I'm a Senior Cultural Heritage Specialist and Manager of the Cultural Heritage Division at ASI. And with me tonight is Martin Cooper, who is Senior Associate and the Indigenous Engagement Lead on this project, who will be here to assist in answering questions if you have any. Thank you. Okay. Canadian societal perceptions of Indigenous histories are changing, and there is increased appetite to discuss and learn about Indigenous identity within Canada today. In order to move forward with reconciliation as a nation, we need to explore every opportunity to discuss Indigenous culture, past and present. Supporting First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples' cultural revitalization, and integrating Indigenous knowledge systems, oral histories, laws, protocols, and connections to the land into the reconciliation process are essential. ASI was retained by the chief administrative officers of 6 of the local municipalities in Wellington County to assist in the development of Indigenous land acknowledgements. A land acknowledgement involves making a statement acknowledging the presence of Indigenous peoples, past and present, and recognizing Indigenous traditional lands and treaties. The land acknowledgements can also identify the displacement and exclusion of Indigenous peoples from their traditional territories. I think this is... As part of this project, ASI worked with a working group made up of the municipal CAOs. ASI conducted a critical review of land acknowledgements to get an understanding of both the best practices associated with creating and giving land acknowledgements, as well as the criticisms that have been raised regarding this practice. Information was gathered from opinion pieces by Indigenous and non-Indigenous individuals, from existing land acknowledgements, and through ongoing conversations with Indigenous nations. A review of primary and secondary sources was undertaken to get an understanding of the Indigenous history of the area, as well as an understanding of the treaties covering the municipalities within Wellington County. Research was also conducted with the specific intent to try to identify specific examples of exclusion and displacement that could be recognized in a land acknowledgement. Following the critical review and the background and historical research, individual land acknowledgements were drafted for each of the participating municipalities. Final reporting also including drafting an information booklet for use by staff. It should be noted that the report, information booklet, as well as the land acknowledgements themselves should be considered living documents to be reviewed on a regular basis and updated as needed. Input from Indigenous nations was, of course, integral to the success of the Land Acknowledgement project, and I will speak to the Indigenous Engagement Program in a few slides. Land acknowledgements are a traditional practice that have been used since time immemorial. They honor, respect, and recognize the nations that live within a given territory. Land acknowledgements originating from settler colonial institutions and governments, however, are more recent, having been around for almost a decade. They have increased in use following the Truth and Reconciliation's calls to action. Land acknowledgements have also been the subject of much criticism from both Indigenous and non-Indigenous commentators. Some critics have pointed out that poorly conceived land acknowledgements can have the opposite effect of what they are intended to do. Instead of contributing towards the goal of truth and reconciliation, they can be seen as just one more example of lip service being paid to centuries of oppression and injustice given out to Indigenous peoples in Canada. Land acknowledgements are an opportunity for the larger society to state the wrongs of the past and contribute to a feeling of inclusivity, and should not be the source of further alienation. It is important that before the creation of a land acknowledgement, serious thought be given to the wrongs committed to Indigenous peoples in the past and how that has continued to the present. This can be done at a local level through historical research and interviewing Indigenous knowledge keepers to reveal specific examples of exclusion and displacement. This information should be included when it is available. A land acknowledgement should not be the culmination of a municipality's attempt at reconciliation, but a starting point. Once adopted, one should seek opportunities to improve the relationships between non-Indigenous and Indigenous members of the community, as well as ways to reach out and support Indigenous communities. Finally, a land acknowledgement should not be static but fluid and open to revision. Indigenous peoples have been living in, traveling through, using the land in this area for thousands of years. It is only relatively recently in the long history of the area that the arrival of colonizers and settlers and alteration of the landscape disrupted the rhythm of life for the Indigenous groups living in the area. Wellington County is covered by several treaties related to the period of land cessions in southern Ontario. These treaties describe the historical nations with whom the Crown negotiated the transfer of land, and in some cases the rights that are assured to these nations within the lands. This also included the cessions of land in the county through 6 separate treaties. The land division, which occurred in the area of the township of Centre Wellington, was strongly influenced by the Grand River and its tributaries. The Grand River dictated Indigenous transportation through the area and defined the treaty lands in that area. The southwest half of the township of Centre Wellington is located within the Haldimand Tract, the northern boundary of which follows Jones Baseline near Fergus, as defined in the Simcoe Patent, or Treaty No. 4 of 1793. The northeast half is located within the Adjutant's Purchase, or Treaty 19 of 1818. The Haldimand Tract consists of land along the Grand River, ceded by the Mississauga of the Credit, for the settlement of members of the Haudenosaunee who had fought alongside British troops during the American Revolutionary War. The Adjutant's Purchase, or Treaty 19, included another vast tract of land ceded by the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. By 1818, the Mississaugas were experiencing a rapid decline in population due to increased encroachment by settlers and declining resources. The township of Centre Wellington is located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, as well as the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee. Input from Indigenous nations was integral to the success of the Land Acknowledgement project. The following nations were contacted about the project: the Amjinun First Nation, Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, Haudenosaunee Confederacy Chiefs Council via the Haudenosaunee Development Institute, Kettle and Stony Point First Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and the 6 nations of the Grand River First Nation elected council. Engagement with rights-bearing Indigenous nations as it relates to the Land Acknowledgement project began in December 2021 with the circulation of a project notice to the nations. The notice described the decision to undertake the project, its goals and timelines, and provided contact information. A project update was circulated in May 2022 to inform the nations that a draft report and a draft land acknowledgements had been produced, and the draft documents were circulated for review and comment. The notice also invited recipients to contact the chair of the working group should they want to discuss the project further or request a meeting. Representatives of the 6 nations of the Grand River, the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation provided written comments on the report. ASI met with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation to discuss technical aspects of the report, and members of the working group and ASI also met with representatives of the 6 nations of the Grand River. ASI worked with the community to address concerns and feedback and made relevant revisions to relevant sections of the report. The CAOs of the municipalities involved in this project are committed to continued engagement with identified Indigenous nations with rights and interests in the project. The final report will be circulated to the nations as well as a notice of project completion. An information booklet was drafted as part of this work, which includes a review of practices for putting together land acknowledgements, but also key considerations when giving a land acknowledgement. So this can be used by staff or who will be giving land acknowledgements. And some of the key considerations include needing it to come from a non-Indigenous source. It should be a simple sign of respect. Correct pronunciation is very important and should practice ahead of time. It should be used for significant events. And thought and meaning should really be given behind the words. The booklet also includes a frequently asked questions section. The FAQ includes questions that may be asked by municipal staff and partners concerning land acknowledgements, and this section can be expanded as needed as more questions come up. One of the questions we hear often is, when should a land acknowledgement be given? And there are no set rules guiding when a land acknowledgement should be given, as long as the land acknowledgement is given in a meaningful way and not recited by rote. It's up to the municipality to determine how often and for which occasion a land acknowledgement should be given. So the following is the land acknowledgement that was drafted for the Township of Centre Wellington that Mayor Waters read at the beginning of the meeting. I can read it now if you like, or it's up on the screen. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time. Okay. We are meeting on lands that have been home to Indigenous nations since time immemorial. We acknowledge that we are on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, as well as the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington, the Mississaugas could not continue their traditional lifestyle and retreated to villages along the Credit River, eventually settling in the Grand River Valley. The Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations. Thank you. Any questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm so impressed. I really like the report, incredibly inclusive and fulsome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I actually think our land acknowledgement is the perfect length. I've heard a lot of people making comments about whether or not it's too long or if it's becoming rote, and I appreciate that you added that in there too. And I wonder, I probably should have checked in with you ahead of time, Mayor Waters, as well as some of the others at the table, and wonder if, to add meaning, we don't share the reading of that every month instead of having one person do it. What becomes more at risk of feeling rote. Overall, thank you. I was at your Peer Point presentation, and you guys have done an exceptional job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation and the report. It's all really well done. I had one minor wording question I wanted your opinion on. In the second paragraph, the first sentence, by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington. I'm curious if that should read in the communities now known as the Township of Centre Wellington, just that the township itself is a relatively new legal entity. So I'm just curious if it would be more historically accurate to say in the communities now known as the Township of Centre Wellington.
That's a good feedback, and would show that it's the township today. So yeah, I think that's great. Yeah,
because then it ends with the Centre Wellington in the next paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I was just curious about that and your thoughts on that.
No, I think that's a great idea. That's a good feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Wellington. Yes.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you so much for coming tonight. This is excellent research. I noticed in collaboration with University of Western Ontario, so that was nice to see. I really appreciate you bringing this forward in the fact that all the townships in Wellington County are reviewing this as well, and I think it is much needed at this council, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any other folks would like to speak to that? Okay. Okay, so we have the land acknowledgement for Centre Wellington report. Oh, is there any other thing? Sorry? Okay.
Nope.
Perfect. A land acknowledgement for Centre Wellington report from Dan Wilson. Do you want to speak to that, Dan?
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I'm not going to add too much more to the ASI presentation, but as you can see, they did an excellent job on the research and the background and the engagement required to create a land acknowledgement for Centre Wellington. As mentioned in the report and as mentioned by ASI, this is really just the first step in a larger conversation around the action needed around truth and reconciliation. We are suggesting in the report that, as mentioned by ASI, that you should focus in on significant events in terms of when you use the land acknowledgement, and to provide the land acknowledgement in a very meaningful way. So in that, what we're proposing is that we use the land acknowledgement at council meetings and public meetings, but not necessarily committee of the whole or advisory meetings. Again, just to focus on the more significant meetings that we have and to make it more meaningful in that way. And then any official meetings we have with Indigenous nations, we would use the acknowledgement. Formal unveilings and ceremonies, and any public information centers, open houses, or workshops where there's a formal presentation or welcome. So we're trying to make it at our more significant events, like I said, to make it more meaningful when we use it. That really concludes my comments. I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Any comments or questions for, yes?
Again, through you, sir. Just to confirm, we will start using this moving forward at every council and other aforementioned opportunities?
That is correct, yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick comment. I just want to thank, through you, Chair, I just want to thank you, Dan, and the rest of Centre Wellington staff for taking the initiative along with the other townships to bring this forward. I think it's really important, and it's definitely something that I think our community has been looking for. So I think it's a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. We have a recommendation here. Recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington receive report CAO 2022-11 regarding acknowledgement for Centre Wellington for information, and that the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington approve the use of the land acknowledgement as outlined in report CIO 2022-11. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder. Councillor Bronwyn, or sorry, Councillor Wilton. I'll get better at this. Okay. All those in favor? So moved. No, there's no. So it all moved. That is great. Thank you. Oh, item 7.2, 2023 Council and Committee Meeting Schedule Report from Carrie O'Kane, Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk. Carrie, welcome.
Good evening. Through you, Mayor Waters. Before you is the draft of the Council and Committee calendar. Included on this calendar are the proposed Council, Committee of the Whole, and statutory public meetings. We've also included Heritage Centre Wellington based on past years. An amended calendar will be brought forward once the advisory committees are established. The schedule has been prepared, keeping in mind the statutory holidays, popular conferences, and the Mayor's Committee schedule. Staff is also proposing to start council and statutory public meetings at 6 p.m. and committee of the whole at 2 p.m. We are also proposing the closing of the municipal office between December 25th and December 29th. Those are 3 working days that the office would be closed between Christmas and New Year's, with the understanding that staff would cover this time with their vacation, unpaid leave, or overtime. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our clerk? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that Council of the Township of Centre Wellington adopt a schedule of council and committee meetings for 2023 as attached to the report COR 2022-58 from the Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk, and that the schedule of meetings for 2023 be posted on the Township website and circulated to staff and other interested parties accordingly. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Adams. All those in favor? So moved. Opposed? Obviously none. Thank you. Item 7.3, appointment of members of council to external organizations and committees, and we welcome back Dan Wilson, our Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. As outlined, this report looks at appointing members of council to external organizations and committees. We do typically have internal advisory committees as well, but staff are recommending that council go through a strategic planning exercise to outline what the structure of those advisory committees will be, and we'll be talking about that in the next presentation. So with this, as council is aware, we did poll council on preferred external committees and boards, and that information was used in distributing members of council to the various boards and committees. In addition to the appointment to the committees and boards, we also have a bylaw attached to the report to appoint a deputy mayor on a rotating basis. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I know Mayor Waters has a few words to say on this, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Councillor
Through
Boyd.
you, Mayor Waters, just for clarification, sir, we are going to hold off until we finish our strat planning, and when is that? When do we hope to have that completed by?
Through Mayor Waters, we'll discuss this in one of the next reports, but I'm hoping with council's approval that we can seek qualified vendors for consulting for a strategic plan and do that in the next week or so. We would assume that would take approximately a month to go through that process, and then early next year we start a strategic planning exercise, so it won't be too long.
With your permission, follow up. Thanks. So just to clarify then, I want to make sure that none of the current and or potential other committees are going to be at risk of losing anything if we miss 2 months worth of work on that. I just want to make sure nobody anywhere is in need of our time before we get there.
Yeah, thank you for the question through Mayor Waters. No, we're very aware of the needs of each of the committees. There are some committees that legislatively continue on, and we'll be mindful of that. So we don't have any concerns at this point.
Great, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Dan. I'll just speak to how we selected the deputy mayor and how we've rolled that out. Basically, we put your names in a bag or a hat, and they were drawn that way. The idea to do this is to share sort of the opportunity to all have that position. That way, over the term of council, and we worked out, I think it was eight months for each of the councillors to have that role. And also, we feel that it's a very important team building exercise, and also to build future leaders here. You're leaders now, but even more so leaders, and hopefully in the future as well. So I will announce sort of the dates in terms of the timing and who is to move forward on that. So we'll start with Councillor Jefferson. You're going to be serving from December 2022 to July 2023. followed by Councillor Wilton. Your August 2023 to March 2024. Councillor Evoy, April of 2024, April 2024 through to November 2024. Councillor Adams, your time will be December 2024 through to 2025, July of 2025. Councillor McDonald, your time would be August of 2025 through to March of 2026. And Mr. Councillor Craddock, your time will be April of 2026 through to November 2026. So thank you and look forward to your time, each of you, on as Deputy Mayor. Seths, we have, yes.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you. I just want to tell you how pleased I am with this rotation. I think it is a great idea. It's collaborative leadership. It gives everybody an opportunity to learn and grow as councillors, and thank you.
Thank you through you. I was actually going to say the exact same thing. I'd like to expand on that and say this is how we plan for future. This is what intelligent succession planning looks like, and I celebrate that you're embracing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will move on to 7.4 and strategic planning update. And Dan is still in is that correct? Oh, sorry. No, you're right. Thank you. We were kind of fooling you. We were thinking you were going to get that, and then we weren't going to carry it forward. So anyways, so recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve the appointment of members of council to serve as external organization and committees as set out in report CAO 2022-10 dated December the 12th, 2022, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a bylaw to appoint a deputy mayor on a rotating basis for the term of council and to repeal bylaw 2021-09. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder. Councillor McDonald. All those in favor? All approved? Thank you. Okay. Now I can go back to 7.4 again. Strategic planning update. Again, thank you, Dan, for staying around. Can you bring us up to date on that one?
Thank you, Mayor Waters. I have a brief presentation on this one. So as council is aware, we have a current strategic plan that has been in place for the 2019 to 2022 time period. With this report, we're going to give council an update on the progress on that strategic plan. The detailed analysis in the appendix to the report shows progress and outstanding areas within each key goal and objective of the strategic plan. And we'll be requesting that council authorize the initiation of a new strategic planning process for this council for the 2023 to 2026 term of council. So strategic planning is a very critical tool in the municipal environment. Basically, strategic planning involves defining a strategy or direction, making decisions, and allocating resources to pursue a specific vision. It's like I said, it's a critical tool to township staff in that it sets goals, it determines actions, and helps us mobilize resources in executing the direction that council approves going forward for the term of council. It does provide very concrete direction for the future of the township, and it's seen as one of the most critical documents that the township has. This is a very familiar image that I think I've shown council a few times already, but the role of the strategic plan in making decisions and providing direction across the organization. The strategic plan is one of 4 key areas that the mayor and council sets direction for staff to operationalize I would argue it's the most critical of the four. So the strategic plan, the annual budget, master plans, and specific council resolutions are the four key areas where council provides direction. So in each of these cases, council sets policy and direction, and our job as staff is to implement that direction and operationalize the decisions made by council. So in a way, it gives our marching orders for the next 4 years. So this is coming right out of the appendix of my report. We like to do what we refer to as a report card at least twice a year with council, just to show the progress made from a strategic planning point of view. It is, this one is a little bit unique in that it's showing you 4 years worth of achievements on the strategic plan, where going forward we will clearly outline achievements made from one report card to another report card. But we felt it would be very beneficial to council to see a full 4-year snapshot of what was achieved in the current strategic plan. And I will point out that COVID-19 did provide a stumbling block in achieving a lot of the initiatives in the strategic plan. But I think even taking that into consideration, I think we were able to accomplish a significant amount of the plan over the 4 years. So these are some pictures of some of the key initiatives that were undertaken over the last 4 years, and you'll see through reviewing Appendix A to the report that there are some very significant initiatives that were proposed and provided direction on the strategic plan. We had direction on establishing employment lands within Centre Wellington, and as you know, we're well on our way on servicing the site in North Fergus and providing additional lands, employment lands to the community. Another major initiative in the first area of the strategic plan is to do a full-blown update of the community improvement plan, and that's something that's underway currently. Also to be very involved in the County Municipal Comprehensive Review, or also known as the MCR. That is something that is still ongoing. We're going into another phase of the MCR with the county in the next number of months, and we look forward to being part of that. There's a lot of discussion around downtown parking and initiating a shuttle program. We've been able to roll out parking strategies for the last 2 years here in Centre Wellington, and in the last year it included a shuttle pilot program, and we look forward to looking at parking more long-term after we pass the 2023 budget. Lots of discussion around water supply in terms of protecting our water supply and providing adequate water supply to our residents and other stakeholders, something we're doing really well on. Lots of discussion on making sure our rural roads are sufficient from a rehabilitation and replacement perspective. Lots on bridge repairs and replacement and being able to speed track our bridge and culvert repairs and replacements, which as council is aware, we have a dedicated capital levy that puts funding committed to bridges and culverts into our budget every year. And the operations center is a big item as well. The strategic plan actually wanted us to open an operations center within the 4 years, but we are a little bit behind on that. We're doing the planning process on the operations center now and looking to move towards detailed design in the near future. So that's just a starting point of what's in the appendix. Staff are happy to take any questions that council have on other major components of the report card. But the second piece to this presentation is for council to recognize the importance of a strategic plan and the need for council and staff to work together in association with various community and stakeholder engagements to create a new strategic plan for this term of council. So if council agrees with this direction moving forward, we would suggest going to market, what's referred to as a request for proposal, which is where we seek bids from various consulting companies that provide strategic planning expertise. We would evaluate those bids and come forward to council with a recommendation to hire a particular vendor, hopefully early on in the new year. And then we would initiate a strategic planning process that involves council, staff, and much-needed community and stakeholder engagement. So that is the proposed direction at this point, and I'd happy to take any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any questions or comments? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Waters. Thanks, Dan. That's a great presentation. I'm just curious, do you go to an open source of vendors, or do you have a select list that you go to first?
Thank you for your question. Through Mayor Waters, we go straight to open market. So it gets posted on the bids and tenders website, and anyone who qualifies to bid can bid anywhere.
Any other further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Dan, for putting that presentation together. I would like to compliment staff and previous council for putting that together and getting us prepared in some ways for where we are today. So I know that's been a lot of work, so I appreciate that. So we have a recommendation that Council of the Township of Centre Wellington approve the initiation of a new strategic planning process for the 2023 to 2026 term of council. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Kim. Seconder? Councillor Dennis?
He's going by first name.
Yes. I'm still kind of feeling this out. Anyways. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Okay. Item 7.5, Ontario Lottery and Gaming, OLG Agreement Amendment. Again, thanks, Dan, for staying with us. Maybe you can proceed with this one, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. This report outlines a required agreement amendment to our Ontario Lottery and Gaming agreement that we have in place with the facility here in Elora. Just as some background for council, we have a current agreement with the OLG. It is provided in attachment A to my report that outlines a percentage of gaming revenues that they generate at the facility here in Elora gets paid to the township on a quarterly basis. For the most part, in the past foreseeable future, it's been at a rate of 5.25% of electronic games proceeds received by the facility on a quarterly basis. There are other aspects of the report, of the agreement that allow us to take a percentage of other gaming revenues if they come into force at the facility, but currently that is the only gaming revenue that we receive from the facility. So the amendment itself is looking at the fact that the facility has introduced sports betting called sports books. And this is a revenue that the OLG is sharing with various municipalities across the province. They have a standard template agreement that they have signed with municipalities like Centre Wellington, where you have an OLG facility in the community. This would give us 4% of proceeds from sports books to be allocated to the township on a quarterly basis. So this would just be an amendment to that existing agreement, and it would increase the proceeds that we receive on a quarterly basis from the facility. And just some further background, we do have an OLG allocation policy that was passed by council prior to the 2020 budget, and it hasn't changed since then. Currently, it shows that 88% of OLG proceeds received to a maximum of 2.2 million go towards township capital projects through the annual budget process. 5% goes to an arts, culture, and heritage reserve fund, and that's typically distributed through a grant application process that council approves post-budget. And the remaining funds go to our economic development reserve fund that has been used to kickstart the business park development in North Fergus. We will be reviewing this allocation policy in advance of the 2023 budget discussion. So we'll get further information and history to council and as part of the January 5th budget meeting. But just as some context, that's the current allocation that was approved by the previous council. So staff will continue to review the OLG allocation funds that are received on a quarterly basis. We don't know at this point how much our quarterly allocations will increase as a result of sports books, but we will monitor this and report back to council. So I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Through you, Mayor Waters, I just want to, I've taken note of the original contract back in 2013 and past Mayor Rasui, and it was a lot of work to put in place. We're fortunate to have those funds come through that we get to work with. While I understand there's pros and cons of having a raceway in your facility, I can't help but really be appreciative of the funds that we do get. And when I look at that original contract, I appreciate what that council and Mayor Rasui did. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. In the name of doing our due diligence as a community and keeping the safety and well-being of our community members forefront of our mind, just to confirm, we've checked in that by adding an extra activity program option for the betting public, we're not adding to the health and well-being of our people by so doing.
Yes, thank you for the question, and through Mayor Waters. The OLG are very mindful of the health and well-being of their customers, and you'll see in Appendix C to my report, there's a little bit of an information item that the OLG provided with the information to municipalities on sports books, and it does mention that they do take a portion of their funds and put it towards the health and well-being of their customers. So that's something that we're very impressed with the OLG facility, and really like the fact that they communicate that out to the public.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Agreement amendment as outlined in report CAO 2022-13 dated December 12, 2021. Do I have a mover? Yes, Councillor Adams. A seconder? Councillor Wilton. All those in favor? So moved. Okay. Thank you for staying up there, Dan. We have a, this is kind of a course of business type of question. Maybe you could explain a little bit. This is item 7.6, 2023 temporary borrowing bylaw. Maybe you can explain a little bit about what that's all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So this is a housekeeping item. We pass this bylaw every December. It is to authorize the temporary borrowing if cash flow requires us to borrow between tax installments, where we're generating tax levy funding from residents and businesses in Centre Wellington. We've never had to use temporary borrowing in the past, and we don't foresee the need to use it in 2023. But good financial management dictates that we pass the bylaw to authorize the use of temporary borrowing if we need it. The thresholds shown in the bylaw are as per the Municipal Act. So they are calculated based on the previous year's budget. And just for clarification, if we're temporarily borrowing between January and September, our maximum is 50% of the previous year's levy. And from October to December, it's 25%. So that is legislated to follow those thresholds. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any questions? Okay, so we have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington pass a bylaw to establish temporary borrowing for 2023. Mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder. Councillor McDonald. All those in favor? So moved. Another housekeeping item, 2023 interim tax levy bylaw. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Yes, this is another housekeeping item. Every December, we pass an interim tax levy bylaw. This allows staff to generate property tax bills in January and get those mailed out to residents. It's mentioned as an interim tax levy bylaw because council has not set a tax levy for 2023. We send this out based on half of the previous year's levy, and then we adjust once council passes a budget and a new levy is established for 2023. So the first two quarterly installments are based on the previous year's levy through the interim tax levy bylaw, and the second two installments are based on the final tax rate bylaw passed by council subsequent to passing the budget. One other thing to point out here is we are proposing a change in installment due dates. In the past, residential due dates have been February and March of every year. Non-residential and multi-residential has been March and May. We've had some input from the business community that they wouldn't mind merging the tax due dates so that all taxes for the first quarter are due in February and April of every year. It helps administratively and it provides more clarity to both residents and businesses in the community. So we are proposing that change to the tax rates, and you'll see that there was some engagement with the business community on that through the BIA as well. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any comments, questions? Yes.
Through you, Mayor Waters. It makes perfect sense from, I can see administratively, to align those. I was just curious, like traditionally in the past, what the reasoning for the different dates may have been.
Yes, thank you for the question, and through Mayor Waters. I believe in the past we had to do these additional detailed calculations on property taxes for businesses through a capping process, and it took a little bit more time to calculate the bills for non-residential properties. So they were somewhat delayed to March and May every year. We no longer have properties subject to capping, and we technically generate all the tax bills for February anyway, so it makes sense just to merge the due dates.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. We have a recommendation here that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington pass bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy for 2023 and to provide for the payment of taxes in installments by installments. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder. Councillor Craddock. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Can't quite leave yet, Dan. Okay, item 7.8, request for proposal number 49-22 Elora Wastewater Treatment Plant light replacement project.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. This is my last one, I promise. This report relates to the replacement of lights at the Elora Wastewater Treatment Plant. I'll leave the technical discussion to Mr. Baker, our Managing Director of Infrastructure Services. He understands the technical aspects on this much better than I do. But from a procurement perspective, we did a request for proposal for the lights itself. Given the value of the project, we went with an invitation of 4 contractors to submit a response on the request for proposal. 2 contractors attended the mandatory site meeting, and 1 contractor decided to submit on the work, and the other one decided not to, given the complexity of the work on the lighting project. We did have a selection committee that evaluated the 1 bid received, representing our Managing Director of Environmental Services and our Supervisor of Wastewater Facilities. In this case, the bid came in with an anticipated total cost of $24,454.71. With a $30,000 budget, we are approximately $5,500 under budget. The township's policy is to have all requests for proposals awarded by council, which is why we're here today. And with that, we are suggesting an award to Motion Electrical Contracting Limited at a contract price of $24,031.75, excluding HST. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Yes, Councillor
Thank
Veilleux.
you, through you, sir. I just want to say I'm celebrating that we're using local people, doing local work, even if they were the only ones that came in. I think we've made a wise choice.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a recommendation that Council of the Township of Centre Wellington award request for a proposal number 49-22, Elora Wastewater Treatment Plant Light Replacement Project to Motion Electric Contracting Limited at a contract price of $24,031.75, excluding HST. Do I have a mover for that? Dennis, or Councillor Dennis Craddock. Seconder, Councillor Evoy. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Okay, we're at 7.9 of our agenda, Victoria Park Senior Centre Constitution update and a report from Pat Newson. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Waters. The Victoria Park Senior Centre Board is a committee of council that has oversight over the operations of the centre. The responsibility of the facility is ultimately with council. However, this constitution provides the guiding principles for the board and the general membership. The board realized that the constitution required some updates, and attached to this report is a highlighted changes from the old constitution, as well as a clean copy of the Constitution. The recommendation is for Council to adopt the revised Constitution. It has been accepted by the Board and also by the membership at the recent annual general meeting. The Constitution was last updated in 2015. So as part of the revisions, it spells out that it should be reviewed annually, and it shall be reviewed and updated by the Board every 4 years at a minimum. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Pat. Comments, questions? Okay, we have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington adopt the revised constitution for Victoria Park Senior Centre, VPSC, adopted by the VPCS Board October 3rd, 2022, and by the membership at the annual general meeting November 24th, 2022. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, Councillor Adams, second. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Item 7.10, Fergus Elora Bellwood Snowmobile Club Agreement. Again, Pat, could we, oh, sorry. That's okay. It was on you. Hi. Mr. Tucker, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Through you, Mayor Waters, the Fergus Elora Bellwood Snowmobile Club is requesting the township to enter an agreement for the use of township lands as part of their trail system. Before I get going, I'd just like to welcome John Osborne, the president of the Fergus Elora Bellwood Snowmobile Club. So thanks for joining us. And since the report, we have an updated map. Lisa, do you mind? Oh, it's up there already. And thank you. And just would like to thank Greg Wolowich, the GIS guru for the township. The one that was in the report was me trying to be a GIS expert, so this is much better. So the agreement is limited to the use of township-owned lands. The club is required to have a similar agreement with all other public or private landowners that make up the trail system within Centre Wellington. And a sample of the agreement is attached to this report. Just a little bit of history. The Fergus Elora Bellwood Snowmobile Club was incorporated in 1981 and has since been maintaining approximately about 150 kilometers of groomed trails within Centre Wellington. Each year, the Snowmobile Club stakes out and adds directional signage to the snowmobile trail throughout the township, and that travels both on private and public lands. The season for snowmobiling in Centre Wellington is typically is short. It's 2 months, typically January and February. And during this time, the club itself grooms the trails with their groomer, as well as monitors the trail for safety. The trail that they do maintain is connected to a larger snowmobile trail system, which snowmobiles can travel to many different destinations within southwestern Ontario and beyond. The Snowmobile Club is also a part of a bigger organization, and it's the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs, which is also a volunteer-led, not-for-profit association that provides voice for the organized snowmobiling for the province of Ontario. As we were working with John and his team, township staff has taken the contract and has consulted with our township insurance partners, and staff have confirmed that will not affect our insurance rates, since the risk of being transferred indemnity to the township from grooming, maintenance, and the use of the trail, and $15 million coverage offered by the club. Just to get into sort of the nitty-gritty of the map, throughout Center Wellington, I don't know if we can zoom in a little bit, but there are road crossings on township roads. So that's sort of part of the agreement, but more so, there's a couple areas where they travel a bit longer on township property. One just starting at the Sportsplex. So Sportsplex is a bit of a staging area for different snowmobilers that come from a lot from Guelph and south of us, because the trails really start up where we have a bit more snow than our neighbors to the south. So that's acted as a great spot for a lot of snowmobilers to come. They start there and jump on private property from there. Another area is just in Bellwood along the third line right away. There's an area where it crosses over the Irvine River. And the other one where it travels a bit on our land is the Cottontail Trail. Did I say that right? I always get that one mixed up. So yeah, that's the big areas where it is on our property. They do travel a bit on our roadways as well to get to trail to trail. And I know we're hoping to work collaboratively with them just to try and find safer ways of travel. So if this agreement is authorized by council, staff will work with the Snowmobile Club to adapt and execute an agreement for the township. But yeah, I'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Yes.
Through you, Mayor Waters, is this also monitored by our OPP as well, or it's just the Snowmobile Club?
It's the OPP as well.
It is, okay, fair enough, thank you.
Councillor Evoy?
Thank you. Through you, sir. I have a couple of questions of clarification. Mr. Tucker, first of all, I love, before I ask you the questions, I love that the optics of this speaks to who we are as a community, working together with people who want to get out and get involved in the things that we offer. I just want to confirm we aren't at any additional risk from an insurance lens by switching over to this role. We're not more at risk now, as per your comment?
No, to my understanding, no. Through our insurance.
Right, as long as that's really
Yes.
clear, so we're not at more risk.
Yes.
And there's a line in here that speaks to making sure that the snowmobilers, assuming that the snowmobilers have their own insurance. How and when is that checked? And what happens to our insurance if we find out they weren't and there was an accident?
And that is patrolled as well through the OPP, and there's that's where it's followed up. So the OPP are out on the trails, watching, making sure people have their proper sticker and insurance.
Sorry, just to clarify, thank you for that. Just to clarify, what if they're not? What if the police aren't on at the same time as someone without insurance? What happens to us if there's an accident from an insurance lens?
I just leaned back to get
saw that.
clarity.
Thank you for that.
So it's my understanding to get their membership that they would have to show proof of insurance at that time. So the club membership requires it, and also the OPP are watching for it, as you allude to the people who might be on there without their membership. But we can't control everything. All we can do is our best, and obviously, if that were to happen, the person is just like driving on the
Without
roads
insurance.
without insurance, right? So it's the same kind of situation. But everybody's trying to do their best to protect the township, the users, and all of the community safety.
Thank you, Ms. Newsom. I appreciate that. And the final point is I'd like more information on the safer options to get our snowmobilers to the trails. I sit at Safe Communities as well, and we all know that it's a bit of a challenge having other vehicles on the sidewalks. And so I look forward to, rather than just leaving it at we are looking for options, with due respect and so much respect, I look forward to a follow-up report on what those options could be, if that's at all possible.
Okay, no, that's great. I think it's something we've chatted about with the Snowmobile Club. They've came forward and they want to work collaboratively with us, looking for options. So it's great.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Any comment or any, okay, so we have any other comments, questions? Nope, that doesn't look that way. So we have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and execute agreement between the Township of Centre Wellington and the Fergus Elora Bellwood Snowmobile Club for the operation, inspection, and maintenance of snowmobile trails located on the township property identified in the map attached to report CS 2022-16. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconder. Councillor Evoy, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Thank you, John, as well. Bylaws? Yes. Okay. Okay, you'll have to excuse me. I'll do a little bit of a bylaw thing here right now. 8.1. Bylaws. 2022-77 bylaw to appoint deputy mayor on the rotating basis for 2022-2026 term of council, and to repeal bylaw 2021-09. 2022-78 bylaw to establish temporary boring for 2023. 2022-79 bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy and to provide for the payment of taxes by installment. 2022-80 bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Centre Wellington and the Fergus Elora Bellwood Snowmobile Club. 2022-81 a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an amendment to the contribution agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Centre Wellington and the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. So I have a recommendation that bylaws 2022-77 through 2022-81 be read first, second, and third time and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and the corporate seal affixed. All, just all.
You need a mover and a seconder.
Yep, okay, thank you. Mover, Councillor Wilton, seconder, Councillor Craddock. All those in favor? So moved. We have no notice of motions. We were going to do the, should I go into confirmation of bylaws, or can I, or I was going to say before the adjournment, we can just say a parting thing? Sure. Okay, sure. So, okay. So a bylaw to confirm the action of council, recommendation that bylaw 2022-82 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held 2012-2022 be introduced a first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, Councillor Seconder, Councillor Jefferson. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you for attending this. This is great. You know, this is our first meeting of council meeting, and appreciate everyone's involvement and council for providing over the last number of weeks all the work and effort to get us to this point. Obviously, this is it's going to be a bit of a journey for all of us for over the next 4 years, but really appreciate all the efforts. I normally wouldn't take But I will,
Thank you, through you. I just want to take a moment to thank all the staff.
Yep.
The planning that's gone into the training has been exemplary, and every single person that we've met with, the reason I wanted to say it at this time was to make it very public that the staff have been amazing. Thank you so much.
thank you, Councillor Evoy. So again, I would like to wish everyone happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, and everyone be safe, and look forward to seeing everyone in the new year. Thanks again. I call this meeting adjourned.